We have major updates in the Legacy Good Samaritan shooting last year, July 22nd, 2023, in Portland. This is your trigger warning. I'm going to be sharing a lot of details. The Oregonian newspaper was able to obtain files from the police investigation, and those were released today. So first, we have a photo here taken moments before Bobby Smallwood, the security guard, was fatally shot by 33-year-old, I think his last name is pronounced Callis, I'm not sure. So his girlfriend was admitted to the hospital July 19th. That is 3 days before the shooting. That's important. Admitted having their third child together. On July 20th, she went in for a C-section. Callis tried to enter the operating room during the C-section, threatened to hurt the staff and kidnap his son, promising that he would die for his son. In the days that followed, he refused all newborn testing, screening, didn't want a birth certificate, continued to be verbally abusive to his girlfriend and to the staff. You can see here that he actually wrote "Do not touch baby" on the whiteboard in his girlfriend's room. His girlfriend would later tell investigators that at one point he asked, "Is there a metal detector here in the hospital?" And she said, "No, I don't think so." Mary Morrissey, the security supervisor, said some staff wanted Callis escorted out the day before the shooting, but said that a nursing supervisor overruled them, saying also that "we fought hard to get him removed, but he wouldn't let me do it," presumably the nursing supervisor. Instead, what Good Samaritan did do is they ordered an extra security officer to come from another facility that day to help watch this guy. And that security officer ended up being Bobby Smallwood. He didn't even work there. Morrissey, the security supervisor, initially wanted to remove Callis from the hospital entirely, but decided to wait for the police to arrive that day to force him out, because at that point he was appearing calm. And so about 10 a.m. on the day of the shooting on July 22nd, the nurses needed to do some newborn screenings. And so Schroeder, the nursing supervisor, asked Callis to come out of the room to talk, to get him out of the room, and said, you're not going back in the room, and took him to a waiting room to buy some time, and had asked Officer Smallwood to come and keep an eye on him. And there was also a chaplain there present throughout this. And so by all accounts, Bobby Smallwood was very gentle and patient and calm with him. He was referred to as a gentle giant. You can see them again here just moments before the shooting. And he said to Callis, "I feel for you. I understand this is upsetting. We only do this for the well-being of the patients." Well, Callis was holding a Bible the whole time and was reading scriptures throughout this. And Bobby Smallwood even commented that some of those passages are very poetic. Meanwhile, while this is going on, the security supervisor is in the girlfriend's hospital room going through a bag that he had brought in the hospital prior to that day. Pulled out a loaded .38 caliber revolver and a loaded shotgun. At which point the girlfriend tells them he probably has his third gun on him right now. Bobby Smallwood, who was not armed, was not aware of any of this. At 10:55 a.m., staff calls 911 and says that there is a man that may be carrying a gun. They tried to motion to Bobby through the windows in the unit doors because they were at the waiting room right outside the unit, trying to motion somehow that he had a gun. They don't think that Bobby saw it or picked up on it at all. They said they just couldn't come right out and tell him without drawing suspicion, that they couldn't, if they opened the unit doors, that he was liable to rush back in. They couldn't radio Bobby because it would be out loud, that sort of thing. They just couldn't find a way to signal to him. After about 20 minutes, the chaplain left. And at some point thereafter, Bobby Smallwood tells him he needs to pat him down. And Collis says, I'm just about to leave anyway, and starts to walk to the elevator. So Bobby goes to get on the elevator with him to follow him out, at which point another security officer, not the supervisor, who I guess had been watching from the unit doors, knowing that there's guns, comes out and stops them, blocks the elevator door with his hand, motions for them to come out, and says, hey, hang out for a minute here. And Collis says he's just going to take the stairs. And then the nursing supervisor, Jed Schroeder, comes out and says, you know what? We'll be with you in a minute. You're not going to go anywhere right now. Collis says, why not? Schroeder says, for our safety and yours, we need you to hang out for a second. Okay? At which time Collis says, what about your safety? With a Bible in one hand, he pulls out his gun. He fires in like an arcing motion down at Bobby Smallwood between his bulletproof vest and his chest. He falls to the floor. The Bible falls on the floor right next to him. Schroeder assumes that Bobby just had the wind knocked out of him because he's wearing a bulletproof vest. And he puts his hands up and says, stop, please stop. There's the stairwell right there. Just go. He leaves a little bit of space between Collis and himself, and then he follows him down the stairwell. Bobby is heard saying, oh, Jesus, help me. Jesus, Jesus, forgive me. Oh, I'm dead. There is a active shooter called, and they go in to lockdown. It will be another 8 minutes before anyone attends Bobby Smallwood to provide any medical care whatsoever. They will later say that because they were in lockdown, they couldn't come out. So he lay there for 8 minutes in a hospital, not getting any medical care. 8 minutes later, Schroeder returns to the 5th floor, confused why Bobby is still on the ground, turns him over, sees a lot of blood, takes the vest off, calls for help, starts compressions. This is now about 11:15. He was pronounced at 12:09. The police arrived on site 2 minutes before Bobby was shot. So Caius takes off out of the hospital, loses his shoes in the process. There's a citywide search. Later that afternoon, they find him riding as a passenger in his friend's van. He calls 911, reads his will over the phone, asks to speak to his girlfriend and kids, says he's ready to meet his maker. Asked the 911 officer, or starts reading him a passage from the Bible that was actually about a fatherless child and a wife who was left a widow. He gets out of the van holding a gun, and 3 officers fatally shoot him. They then find his handwritten will inside the van. I would like for any of the supervisors involved in this to go and give talks around the country about what you learned from this and what you would have done differently. Legacy Good Samaritan knew about this for 3 days and chose to do nothing.